There are so many possibilities that you could see for yourself, and much of it was already in motion. Shiloh just seemed happy to hear it. Great! Being around him again was a little like picking up an old forgotten habit. Clunky at first, but as the four of you talked, it started to come more naturally. And when one of you ran out of things to say, suddenly someone else remembered something new. I really value the types of friends that I have whom we can not see each other for years, many years, and we'll eventually hang out again, and we'll just pick it right from where we left off, you know? There is just something about friends who you can just do that with. It doesn't matter if you've lost touch. It doesn't matter if we don't talk on the phone on a regular basis or social media on a regular basis. But when we do come together, we're like, yeah, I miss you too. And, you know, just have an awesome conversation. It doesn't have to be anything like, but like meaningful, not like, what's the weather like? Oh, the weather like, oh, where are you working now? Like, sure, we'll talk about those things, but if you can still have deep conversations, even despite how many years you've been apart, that's a very awesome thing to share with those friends. Oh, right. Do you remember those mean old, not actually grandparents that used to live in our neighborhood? Yeah, they were so mean. Well, they're not here anymore. Oh no, they're not spending summers here anymore. They're still alive. Thank goodness. It helped that Shiloh was just as eager to hear what had gone on in his absence as people were to tell him. Soon everyone threw out what trash they had in the nearby garbage can as your group made their way down to the beach. Going down the shore inevitably led to a certain spot. It didn't take very long for Shiloh to recognize that what was in the distance. His words trailed off in the middle of a sentence, his footsteps faltering at first. Then all at once he broke away from the group and dashed right into the old park, giggling as he ran. Oh, everything's so small! His laughter petered out as he came to a stop by the swings and grabbed a hold of the support poles. He walked in a little circle around it, marveling at how easily his hand wrapped around its entirety. Emboldened by Shiloh's enthusiasm, Liz plopped herself down on one of the swing sets, only to instantly show an expression of regret. There was no way she was comfortable in that tiny seat so low to the ground, not with how she had to scrunch up her legs to fit there. Shiloh creeped up behind her. He took hold of the chains of her swing, one in each hand.
Seriously?
What are you doing? And with a grin, Shiloh started walking back. Liz shifted in her seat to look at him. You cannot be trying to push me. These are made for kids. It's never gonna work. But Shiloh just hummed and kept pulling her back. Resigning herself to her fate, Liz tucked her legs up as much as possible as Shiloh moved his hands to her back. With a running start, he got her forward and up as far as he could go before jumping out of the way. Liz had her eyes squeezed shut, a screech escaping as the swing started falling backwards, and when it swung back around, there was Shiloh again to push her. She couldn't kick the ground like when you were kids. Her legs were too long for that now, but Shiloh was pushing her enough to keep the momentum going. The air was filled with their wild laughter and the almost rhythmic jangle of the swing chains. Cove sat against the bars of the jungle gym, wearing a bent smile as he watched them. He was fiddling with something, turning it over and over in his hands. When you craned your neck to get a better view, he obligingly lifted it for you to see. It was a piece of shell, one side rough and mottled gray, the other side completely smooth, revealing a faint blue sheen when it caught the light. That sounds pretty. I saw on the beach. It's nice, isn't it? Yeah, it's a good one. No, I meant Shiloh. He seems more confident than I remember. I think so too. You found it amazing to be playing with Shiloh at the park again. You thought it was crazy how much time had gone by. Why don't you push me on the swings like that? You left the conversation there. No, I don't care. I don't care. You find it amazing to be playing with Shiloh at the park again. I don't think I'll ever forget this. Cove nodded, leaning back to enjoy the breeze blowing in from the sea. Soon your sister began to speak out. All right, I'm ready to get off now. How do you stop this? Don't worry. I love Shiloh's voice in this game. It's so adorable. Shiloh braced himself, one foot planted forward as the swing started to coming back down. Then in one quick motion, he reached up and caught the chains again. The impact had his feet skidding back in the sand, but he kept his stance steady. If Liz was surprised at suddenly being brought to a halt, she didn't show it, only tilting her head up to smile at him. Shiloh had yet to catch his breath, though returned the smile just as brightly. He let go of the chains, walking around the swing set and briefly rubbing his hands together before offering one to Liz, which she graciously accepted, needing the help to get out of the tiny seat. Then the two of them made their way back over to you and Cove. Liz was looking for more ruffled than usual, and her sun hat was off kilter, having held on for dear life for the entire ride. She took a moment to straighten out her outfit back into place. That looked like fun. It was! Even though you were just pushing me on the swings? Yep, that was the fun part. Hey Shiloh, you got an idea of what our lives have been like since you've been gone, but I've been wondering what happened to you after you moved away. That's what I want to know. Shiloh's eyes went wide, as if it was surprising to hear. You couldn't recall him talking about himself when you were all telling stories, but maybe he hadn't been able to find the right timing. Good on you, Cove, for asking Shiloh to fill us in on stuff. He brought his hand to his chin, tapping it thoughtfully as he looked up and to the side. Well, what happened was my mom decided to move back to the south, closer to where I was born. We stayed there for a few years until she got another job in California again, thanks to a connection she had there. It was a really good job at a private boarding school, so she decided to take it. With a wide grin, he said the next part. And as a bonus, her kid, me, gets to attend the school and live in the dorms for free. I've been there since my second year of middle school. So again, if I've been told that Shiloh is a character in another visual novel game made by the same company. So he appears there as an actual possible romanceable character, which is cool, which is very cool. I heard that other game is darker than this one. I may be interested in playing it just to find out if Shiloh is like what Shiloh is like as a romanceable character, unless somebody else, there's another character that grabs my attention. But we'll see. I'll do some research and see if I'll have some time. I have a large stack of games that I need to be playing beyond this one, but it's definitely on my radar. And so I think this school is where that game takes place, and I believe you play as a student at this school that Shiloh attends. Pretty soon, I'm going to be starting my last year of high school. So I don't know if this happens before or after the events of the game. I'm guessing before. That's my guess. Liz leaned towards him with an attentive smile on her face, because continuity-wise, it would probably be easier for them to have this Shiloh be before the game, that other game. Have you been doing well there? Getting good grades? Got any friends? At the list of questions, Shiloh held his hands in front of himself as if they were physical things he could stave off. Yeah, to everything. It can be a little hard sometimes because of how people are in that school, but I am happy because of how people are. How people are? Cove couldn't guess what that meant, but Liz folded her arms, scowling. Don't tell me there's more people like that Nate guy hanging around. I hope not. Shiloh rubbed at his cheek, laughing nervously. He glanced from the bars of the jungle gym to the laces of his shoes, to the trees swaying in the distance, unsure of where to rest his gaze. Not exactly. Nate doesn't mean to be mean. He just kind of is. Oh, is Nate one of the characters too? I have a feeling Nate also might be one of the characters in that game. He's the school's #1 performer for athletics and academics. Ow. He always takes on so much responsibility that the only possible way he can finish it all is if absolutely nothing goes wrong. My, that's gotta be stressful for him. But that's impossible, so he's always stressed and ready to snap. He can't handle it when someone seems to be causing a problem. That's why during the field trip, he was upset when I went off on my own like that. Still, she's really smart and reliable and sensitive, and he cares a lot. Most of the time, he doesn't even realize his way of dealing with stuff upsets other people. Cove had a patient smile on his face, listening earnestly as Shiloh rattled off his list of Nate's good traits. You know him pretty well. Are you actually friends? Well, not exactly. Me and Nate are in the same after-school group. About once a month, me, 6 other students, and a supervisor get together to talk. We did it all of last year, and I think next year we're gonna be in the same group again. I hope so. Nice. That's weird. Why would you want to be in a group with him? I'm glad Nate's not so bad after all. You didn't comment on it. Why would you want to be in a group with him? Despite Shiloh vouching for him, you still weren't convinced that Nate could be any sort of pleasant to be around. Liz vigorously nodded along with you in total agreement. Personally, I'd still appreciate having a word with Nate about his communication skills. Her tone of voice was low and pointed. You'd be worried for Nate if not for the playful smile that accompanied her words. Shiloh let out a little laugh at that. I do have Nate's number, but he wouldn't pick up. The people in my group only answer when they feel like hearing from me, so usually I have to wait for them to call. Either that, or they never even consider answering my calls, or calling me, or talking to me at all, unless a supervisor forces them to. That's really sad. It was such a bleak description of his dynamic with his group, but he didn't seem to realize it until he glanced up and saw the concerned looks on everyone's faces. His smile fell. He hastened to add one more thing. Well, except for one who will always answer for sure. Oh? She immediately perked up.
Really?
Who's that? A friend of yours? Is that the main protagonist? He's talking about Liz? He hesitated to answer, something Cove picked up on. Not exactly? Yeah, I'd like to be friends, though. Alright. Liz crossed her arms together once more, grim-faced like she was the commander of a ship about to lead her little crew into battle. You should call them, right now. What? If you want to be friends with them, I can help. If you're going to be in the same group again, then you should at least try to get along. No, I couldn't. He quickly grew flustered, his tongue stumbling over his sentences. I don't want to be a bother. Liz, what are we going to do? Watch him while he talks to someone on the phone? No, Cove. Shiloh. The last syllable of Shiloh's name trailing off into nothing. It soon became clear Liz had not fully thought out the plan yet, but she wouldn't be Liz if she just stopped there. Shiloh could put them on a video call, and we could all talk together, of course. I'm sure that's not weird. She clasped her hands together, a wide smile on her face that didn't leave room for dissenting opinions.
All right.
It's a good idea. It'll work. It's a great idea. It's a terrible idea. Cove's right. You had no words for that. I'm just gonna stay out of this. Cove gave a long-suffering sigh at Liz's suggestion. Come on, Shiloh, we'll just talk to them. Say that we're your friends from out of town. The worst that could happen is nothing changes. But once they have more chances to talk to you, I know they'll be convinced to be better friends. It's going to turn out okay. Shiloh stalled to answer, but his hand was already hovering over one of the pockets of his pants. All right, we can talk. Yes! Liz clenched a hand into a fist, cheering as Shiloh officially reached into the pocket and pulled out his phone. You noticed it was the same type of model on your own, but his had a red case around it. The screen lit up and Shiloh requested a video call with some number in his contacts. None of them on the list had names. He must remember what number belongs to what person. He inched closer to the three of you so everyone could hear better. Vaguely, you wondered how this looked from the outside. 14-year teenagers on the verge of adulthood hanging out in an old playground and all huddled up around a single phone. Strange? Suspicious? The ringing of the phone broke you out of your musings. You kept your eyes on it, your heart speeding at the end of each dial tone, thinking could this be it, only to have another startup. It had been ringing for a while when you started to think of what Cove said about all of you watching as Shiloh talked on the phone. Maybe even that wouldn't happen. Shiloh could sense the awkwardness in the air, smiling to try to dispel it. This is normal, don't worry. Just as he said it, the call ended, not even going to voicemail. Shiloh clicked through a dial. He never answers on the first call. He always does on the second. That's how he is, at least with most people. There are exceptions. I know people who do that. You, Liz, and Cove furtively shared ambiguous looks, none of you wanting to accidentally discourage Shiloh. Then you focused on the phone again as it started to ring once more. There's sort of like, the attitude of, if it's really that important, they'll call me back. Or leave a message, or leave a voice message. Because I get a lot of spam phone calls all the time that I personally do not answer a phone unless I recognize the person. Because if it is a legitimate phone number, or if it is a legitimate call and not spam, they can leave a message and I'll call them back. You, Liz, and Co. furtively shared an ambiguous looks. Yeah, I get that. The jingling suddenly cut off in the middle, followed by the faint sound of white noise. With a big smile and flushed cheeks, Shiloh brought the phone up to his face. A voice, low and groggy, came rasping out of the speakers. Hello? Shiloh, on the other hand, was much more chipper. Hi, I'm visiting a town I used to live in when I was little, and I wanted to introduce my group mate to the people I knew back then. Some of them have already met Nate. Can you say hi to them too? And with that rushed introduction, Shiloh stuck the phone out towards Cove, gesturing for him to greet the person on the other end. Although Cove hadn't been on board in the beginning, the only indication of that now was the lopsided tilt of his smile. He turned his gaze down to the screen, opening his mouth to speak, only to start to a complete stop. Huh? All Cove could do was sputter and gape at the screen, his reaction at Shiloh's brow crinkling in worry. What? Shiloh's groupmate didn't sound particularly impressed with how this conversation was going so far. Yeah, maybe not start. I love you, Cove, but maybe not start with him. Maybe don't start with him as the social person. Shiloh frowned, retracing his arm away from Cove. As he did so, the screen tilted towards you and you caught a glimpse of what was on the screen. Oh, light green hair, sharp orange eyes, shadowed with bags, an icy pale skin, all tied together to make up the scowling face of a person who clearly had no desire to be here. You had no idea what was going on. You knew him. Did I know him? I'll just say you knew him and see what happens. A flood of memories arose, flashes of that one summer years ago at this very same park, you holding into an arrangement of fruit, Derek and Cove at your side. Is this Jeremy? And that kid, mean as a tiny chihuahua, snapping at everyone who dared to come close. Are you Jeremy? The bowl cut kid, you screamed. Quick, hang up the phone. Wow, you're a lot better looking now. I disagree with that. You stared in shock. And so Jeremy's in there too. Are you Jeremy? Yeah? His reply was palpably disinterested. How did you know his name was Jeremy? You didn't tell them? No, I only called you somebody. No, I only called you somebody from my group at school. Jeremy regarded you cautiously, for the first time giving the situation a little of his focus. Cove bristled, sucking a long, deep, dramatic breath.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. And all at once, he started shouting, and not just with his voice. He waved his arms around, gesturing wildly with his hands as he repeatedly yelled, oh my god, with all sorts of inflections. Oh my god, oh my god. At these antics, Jeremy gave a short huff of a sigh through his teeth, the sound tinny over the phone speakers. What is this, Shiloh? Are you trying to make me suffer? Are you still mad about what happened at the amusement park? I was on your side, you know. Liz, who had been entirely lost this whole time, finally spoke up.
Huh?
What happened at the amusement park? But no one paid that question any mind. I don't know what's going on. Have you met each other before? Nope. It was an immediate reply from Jeremy, but then those stinging eyes squinted. Wait. There was a flash of recognition as he leaned his head forward and scrutinized the both of you. His already wide frown somehow found a way to grow deeper at his realization.
Oh,
it's
you people.
You people.
Again.
Yeah. Definitely not more attractive. He looked from Shiloh to Cove and then to you. You could tell he was carefully putting his thoughts together.
Sorry.
I have no idea how you people got in contact with me or what Shiloh has to do with this, but, sorry. What? Jeremy sighed again. His gaze rolled over to Cove. I don't remember exactly what I did or what I said, but I do know what I was like as a kid, and really, that's all I need to know. Well, okay, but who is that apology for? It better be for me and Vaughn. He spoke sternly, though there was no hiding the shakiness present. That didn't matter. Cove coming to your defense by confronting Jeremy brought a warm smile to your face. Jeremy, on the other hand, continued to be unimpressed. The corner of his lip twitched. I didn't need to know what the teenage guy equivalent of a smushy squeak is, but now I do. Thanks for that. A small, offended noise escaped Cove. Unfortunately, it was also squeaky sounding. His face immediately burnt red with embarrassment. Hey, that's my squeak toy you're talking about. You laughed. What a perfect description. Cove is exactly like that. That said, you better not step for the sound again. You didn't say anything. I'll say, hey. Taking a stall step forward, your hands is indistinctly curled to fists. This is not, I'm not a violent person, but I would use my words, not my fists. You couldn't believe at the first chance he got Jeremy insulted Cove again. Yeah, I mean, that's still the best answer I can give. Glancing at Cove to silently ask, can you believe this? You notice the tiny smile on his face at your offensive on his behalf. Jeremy didn't react at all. He continued watching the four people on the other end of this unwanted call, lackadaisically.
Whatever.
The apology is for whoever. Yeah, then it's not really an apology. You're just wasting your breath, sir. Anyone who had to deal with me back then, they weren't having a good time. Back then? We weren't back then? Dealing with you back then wasn't a good time? He shrugged. Jeremy's focus cycled from you to Cove and back again. I kind of remember what happened, I think. You were sensitive and you didn't have much patience for me. That makes sense. Jeremy tilted his head, Cove's way, and then yours respectfully. Amazed, Cove took a few processing moments before he could respond. He blinked and rubbed the back of his neck. Oh, thanks. I mean, it's no problem. You just looked away. I've still got my eyes on you. You're lucky you're not here in person. I accept your apology. Thank you, Jeremy. This is honestly incredible. Okay, then. Okay, then. This was too weird for you. Silently you wondered what the statistical odds were for you, Cove, Shiloh, and Jeremy meeting again like this. Whatever. Yeah, see, I mean, I said okay then because I knew that that apology wasn't sincere. You know, it was just whatever. At least he's aware that he was a total D-bag back in the day, but he seems very oblivious to his not so compassionate personality at this moment either. Following Cove's eyes, you watched it dart from Shiloh to Jeremy, openly wondering what had happened to Jeremy over these past few years. So you're nice now? I wouldn't call him nice.
Nope.
I don't throw tantrums or pick fights anymore, but I'm not nice. Yeah, Cove, he's not nice. Jeremy shook his head in disbelief. That squeak toy comment wasn't a compliment, you know. I don't have the energy to get angrily worked up like I used to as a kid. It's all pointless anyway. Now I'm just miserable. I'm wondering why. I'd like to, Jeremy, I'm just telling you, I think 90% of the reason why you're miserable is kind of your doing. I'd like to believe that. Sometimes you're your worst enemy. Sometimes you are your worst enemy. His tone was even grumblier than usual, and dragged the syllables out on the last word for extra emphasis. Oh, an awkward laugh escaped Shiloh, then his mouth pulled into a demure smile. Don't let what Jeremy says about himself get you too down. He's got people who care about him and make sure he's okay, like me. Don't listen to Shiloh. It's nice you're looking out for someone else, Shiloh. I don't really care if Jeremy's sad or not. I'm still not over the fact. I mean, this isn't true. I don't care. It isn't that I don't care if Jeremy is sad or not. I care if he is trying to be a better person. And it seems like he's changed and evolved, but he's pretty lackadaisy about going too much further. I'm still not over the fact that the two of you actually know each other. You didn't say anything. It's nice you're looking out for someone else, Shiloh. Shiloh blushed at the compliment, while Jeremy fixed you with a blank stare. Thanks, Fawn. Okay, seriously, how long am I meant to be out of the loop here? Her expression twisted in frustration as Liz rubbed her right temple. That's right, I don't think Liz ever met Jeremy back in the day. Oh no, she did. I think she met them at the park. Why am I the only one who doesn't know this kid? Shiloh goes to school with him, that's fine, but how the two of you met him and I didn't? You tried to explain. You hope someone else would deal with that. No, I'll explain. You were there, I think. He was around town one summer, maybe 5 years ago? Is that all? While Liz seemed a bit underwhelmed, Shiloh appeared to be utterly amazed. You had to hold back a small laugh.
Really?
You knew Jeremy as a little kid? What was he like? I've only known him for a year and a half. He wasn't very pleasant, unfortunately. Well, his voice immediately hushed into nothing. You could see Cove wince just thinking on those past encounters. You reflected on that as well. Actually, Cove does a good Jeremy impression. Why don't you do that instead? No, that's not going to help the situation. You reflected on that as well. You could already picture past Jeremy in your mind. He was a mean kid. He was horrible. All he did was yell and say people were dumb. He was kind of pathetic. I don't even know how to explain it. He didn't answer. All he did was yell and say people were dumb. You weren't sure what else to say about him. He was an insufferable kid. Cove nodded firmly in agreement. It didn't matter what happened. He was mad about everything. Jeremy's expression didn't give away a single sign of what he might have been thinking. He continued to blandly stare at you both up until he finally spoke. Yep, that sounds like me. At that confirmation, Shiloh burst into uncontrollable laughter. Even when he calmed moments later, gasping for breath, there was still a wide grin plastered on his face. I can't even imagine Jeremy being like that. Really now? I can't imagine him not being like that. They both chuckled again, Cove's mouth pulled open into a bent smile. I mean, Jeremy hasn't made fun of my eyebrows once this whole conversation. Unbelievable. That was actually funny, Cove. Huh? Jeremy blinked and focused all of his attention onto Cove. His eyes unmistakably narrowed in on the eyebrows. He didn't say anything at first, and then his words came out in a mumble. That makes sense. I guess insulting eyebrows is just what I did as a kid. What does that mean? What do you think it means? You aren't the only kid in the world with bad eyebrows, and you're not the only one I picked on for it.
Seriously?
I wasn't? You couldn't help yourself, could you? Nope. Wow, so what made their eyebrows bad? Are you curious if yours are better, by terrible eyebrow standards, at least? Kind of, yeah.
Sigh.
Incredulously, Cove looked around from Jeremy to you, and then back to him again. You had to question if you heard that right. He spoke the word sigh instead of actually sighing. Noticing the reaction, Jeremy sighed for real, but he continued on to answer Cove's question. The guy was particularly odd hair coloring, white hair, but only on the top of his head. Every other strand on his body is dark brown, including his immensely bushy eyebrows. He was born that way. It's not dyed. So he's like Cruella de Vil. So you were the scarred boy with dumb, wavy eyebrows, and he was the white-haired boy with stupid caterpillar eyebrows. Ow. Unexpectedly, a loud gasp came from Shiloh at that description. No, you picked on Pran for his eyebrows? I did. I'm sure you find that hilarious. All these references to characters in the other game that I do not know, and I cannot relate to. No, that's not very funny. So he said, but Shiloh was smothering laughter. The unconvinced note in Jeremy's voice didn't surprise you. Okay, wait, give me a second. Jeremy rolled his eyes in the slowest, most exaggerated way possible. When he made a complete circle, he spoke flatly while Shiloh broke into a fit of giggles. There. Who's Pran? Shiloh knows him too?
Well,
Jeremy and Pran have known each other for a long time. They managed to go to the same boarding school later on. I met them both there in the spring of last year. We're all group mates. Jeremy's gaze slid away from Shiloh. He looked somewhere between you and Cove. Pran and I met about 4.5 years ago, back when I was still an intolerable brat and Pran was meek. You can only imagine how amazing that combination was. Yeah, it must make those group meetings awkward. Nope, somehow, someway, for some reason, Pran chose to stubbornly stick with me for as long as we've known each other. He's my best friend. What? It's surprising, I know. I have a best friend, and it's the caterpillar brow guy of all people, but I guess things balance out in the end. Pran's timid nature is good and dead. He grew up to be colder than even me. I'm mopey and he's broody. A perfect match. Two peas in a ruining everyone's life pod.
Gross.
Don't quote Everett. Cove whined after Jeremy's snapped his last remark. Now who's Everett? You don't want to know. Yeah, you don't want to know. Shiloh hummed, and he watched his three old friends with an amused smile. He was having fun. Before he could say anything, Jeremy continued. Everett is also part of the group, unfortunately. Must be another romantical character. But he chose not to celebrate further than that. Liz sighed this time. Not to elaborate further than that. You could feel her frustration. You couldn't blame her for that. She hadn't been able to participate much at all. She didn't know Jeremy then, so there was no basis for reminiscing now, and there was a 10-year-old gap in her history with Shiloh. The whole situation struck an odd chord with you. Two boys that you knew separately came to know each other, and now they know each other much better than they know any of you. Shiloh was almost a stranger. He shrugged the feelings off. You didn't know how to feel. You were on the same page as Liz. You felt down. You were glad things seemed to be going all right. You felt annoyed by how things folded. No, I shrugged the feelings off. Whatever. It is what it is. It is what it is. It was a weird twist of fate, but nothing worth getting upset over. All of you were breaking out to live your own lives. It was just part of growing up. Turning to the three of you, Shiloh smiled apologetically. You wondered if he was picking up on how in the dark Cove and Liz were feeling. He was perceptive what he wanted to be. Hey, is there anything you want to hear about, Jeremy? I can tell you all about him. We should get to know each other better. Don't do that. It'll be okay. Jeremy whined, but Shiloh brushed his complaints off. He remained happily focused on the rest of you, and Liz seemed to perk up at the conversation shift. That sounds great. We should get to know Jeremy. Do we? So, who wants to go first? Despite being eager, it was obvious that Liz didn't have any ideas herself. Jeremy let out a very long sigh. When's his birthday? What's his full name? Can I get his number? What are his parents like? Does he have siblings? Does he have any hobbies? Is he doing well in school? How tall is he? What happened to his bowl-cut glasses? What did happen at the amusement park? Is he single? Does it have... I don't have any questions.